Hey everyone, welcome to this week's reading of Shard of the Sun. We're picking up with chapter 25. So we'll just jump into it. Um, over the next few days, they drove their horses beyond exhaustion. Roderick's own mount ended up dying, which caused them to lose precious time. He rode with Mark on his horse until they reached a small town where they could buy another. They didn't spend much time resting, choosing instead to push themselves as hard as their horses. Mark and the others didn't say a word in protest, but Roderick knew they were not happy with their suicidal pace. He wished he could share the reason for their haste with him, but Napier had sworn him to keep silent. They had almost passed through the great plains, and after that they would reach the mountains where, according to Napier, they would find Farron. They had stopped to eat one night, and Broderick questioned the elf in private about the place he had seen through Farron's eyes. "What is it?" Napier finished chewing some berries he had found at their last campsite. "It is a place older than memory," he said. He took a sip from a flask he had brought with him filled with checker. "Even the oldest among my people do not know its origins. It was first brought to our attention before my kind closed our boundaries. One of my fellow spellweavers had fallen in love with a human woman. She was a pilgrim and had traveled across the land, searching out forgotten holy sites. She took him there and showed him the wonders of the place. When he returned, he shared what he had seen with myself and the king. With a few others, we traveled to the ruins and investigated the area." Napier looked into the sky, staring at the stars in silence for a moment. "What we found was as intriguing as it was disturbing." Roderick scratched his chin and waited for the elf to continue talking. When he didn't, Roderick spoke up. "What did you find?" "Spells. Hundreds of spells etched into the walls of a cave. That was the intriguing part. The disturbing aspect was the design of the cave. It was a natural cave formed over the course of time, yet the inside had been changed. There were strange things about the floor, but we were unable to determine what it was exactly, or what purpose of the place was. For several years I searched through everything in my personal library, as well as the king's. I found nothing useful, but I continued to search no matter. The writing was very close to Elvish, but none of my people have ever lived outside of the forest. I don't know who could have designed that place, but I suspect they might have been an elf." "So what is the purpose of the place?" Broderick asked. "I have never been able to discern that. I was able to decipher a portion of one of the spells on the wall. It referenced holy blood. Blood magic is ancient, and most wizards today don't know of its existence." "Most? Does Farron know about it?" Napier frowned. "Unfortunately, I believe he may. That is why we must hurry and reach the mountains. If Farron plans to break open the shard, nothing good can come from it." Broderick didn't argue with that. They walked back to camp, and after laying back down, Napier released the spell on Joel. The young soldier shook himself awake, glanced around, and resumed his post as if nothing had happened. Broderick smiled and tried to go to sleep. Dawn came too quickly for his liking, but he knew that they had to get moving. Rousing himself from his bedroll, he found the soldiers already up and eating breakfast. He didn't see Napier anywhere. Broderick walked over to the fire and poured himself the last of what was in the pot. He didn't bother asking what it was, and devoured it quickly. He was about to ask Mark where Napier was when the elf rode up on his horse. "I see tracks," he said, pointing northward. "A large group on foot, it seems. They're heading the same direction as us." The tone of his voice hinted to Broderick that this was more bad news. "Let's go," Broderick said. They broke down their camp in a matter of minutes. Broderick always marveled at the efficiency and quickness with which the soldiers did everything. They rode out shortly after, following the tracks. Almost after almost an hour, they came upon the group that had made the tracks. They were a fair distance away, but Broderick recognized the unmistakable white robes of priests. Nodding in the direction of the travelers, he said, "Priests, a bunch of them." Looking to Napier, he saw the elf seemed troubled, more so than before. He pulled his horse next to the elf and asked in a low voice, "What is it?" "I'm not sure. A feeling, mostly. Yet I think that these priests are not here by coincidence, considering the direction of their course and who waits there." Roderick nodded. He had come to the same conclusion. "What should we do?" "I have an idea," the elf answered, "though it may be tricky. Let you and I overtake them, and leave the others here. Then," as Napier finished explaining his plan, Roderick shared it with Mark. The soldier was hesitant, but agreed to do as he was instructed. Roderick and Napier rode forth and met up with the priest after a few minutes. Good men, Broderick greeted them as he approached. The group of holy men slowed their pace, but they did not stop. I hate to trouble you, gentlemen, but we have been just been struck with disaster. My comrades are stuck, and we could use some assistance. Would you be so kind? He slowed his horse to keep step beside the lead priests. We would love to help, one of them said, but we are on a holy pilgrimage to the mountains. If we were not pressed for time, we would most assuredly help you. I beg your apology. Roderick thought it might prove difficult to get them to agree, and he had prepared an argument in advance. We were just riding along, and a giant sinkhole opened up and swallowed my comrades. All 5 of them went right down into the ground. I don't need all of you to help, just a few strong men to help lift them out with a rope. If you can be so kind as to spare them long enough to help, we can ride them back to meet you. No time lost, really. What do you say? The priest continued walking for a moment and nodded his acceptance. That should be fine. Without stopping, he identified 5 men from the group and told them to follow Broderick. I appreciate it, he said, as he turned the horse around. The priest nodded. Broderick and Napier led the priest back to where Mark and the others were waiting. As they led them into a patch of tall grass, the soldiers leapt out and attacked the priests. None of them used weapons, as they did not want to kill them. They easily overpowered them and knocked them unconscious. I hope you have a good reason for this, Ged remarked to Broderick. I don't see how assaulting priests is going to help me after I die. It can't be helped, Broderick answered. Just trust me. It's for the best. Ged grunted in response. They bound the priests to each other with rope and took their robes from them, leaving them huddled together in the grass with only their loincloths. Mark and the other soldiers donned the robes and remounted their horses. It's taken too long. Let us hurry, Napier said. They thundered back to the north, pausing to leave the priests with the group. Thanks again, Broderick yelled to them as he and Napier continued on. They tied the soldiers' horses to their own to keep from having to leave them behind. We must reach the mountains before they do, Napier said. Do you think Farron will know? Broderick asked, worried for Mark and the others. We can only hope that he does not. They continued riding in silence much of the day, pausing only once to eat and give the horses a brief respite. By the time the sun set, they had reached the base of the Starforge Mountains. We are making camp? Broderick asked as he dismounted, rubbing his sore legs. No, Napier answered. We must leave the horses here and continue on foot through the night. We do not have time to rest. Broderick grunted. We don't have time to rest at all? Napier shook his head. No. Stand on that rock, he pointed. Out of curiosity, Broderick obeyed. What do you see? The elf asked. Nothing, Broderick answered. Look to the horizon. Broderick turned his gaze to the way they had come. At first, he didn't see anything. Then he noticed movement. He squinted to try and see better, but it was no use. What is it? He said, still squinting. The priests. What? How have they traveled so fast? Napier dismounted his own horse and spoke a few whispered words to the creature. It turned and trotted off to the east. My assumption would be that they are aided by magic. There was something about the one that spoke that seemed out of the ordinary. I believe he was carrying a charm of some sort. It seems Farron understands the importance of time as we do. Then let us waste no more of it. They began their ascent of the mountain immediately, and Broderick struggled with every step. The terrain of the mountains was rocky and loose. He found himself ankle deep in the dirt, his legs burning with the tremendous effort it took to free his feet and continue. Napier seemed to have no difficulty at all, stepping lightly and easily. Broderick was heaving, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Every step was excruciating. He desperately wanted to stop and take a break, but he feared if he stopped, he wouldn't be able to continue. Sweat drenched his body, making his clothes cling to his flesh uncomfortably. His foot yanked free of his boot, and he stabbed the bottom of his foot on an uneven rock. He cursed in his mind, but forced his body to continue. His other foot came free of his boot, and he continued barefoot. Soil clung to his sweat-laden skin. He forced his mind to focus on lifting his foot and stomping it down. It became a litany. Up, down, up, down. He kept his eyes focused on Napier's back and repeated the citation over and over. Hours passed without notice. His muscles were so sore and tired that he became numb to it. At one point, he became aware of faint light in the sky. He almost ran into Napier before he realized the elf had stopped. What is it? Broderick croaked, his voice breaking. He was extremely thirsty, and his legs shook violently before he collapsed on his backside. Surprised you haven't fainted yet, the elf said calmly, as if he had expended no effort at all. Napier handed Broderick a wooden flask. He took a drink of the elvish liquid. A burning feeling like fire swept through his body, invigorating him. He handed the flask back to the elf and leaned against a rock. We are almost to the ruins. Take your rest now, for we must be ready and focused if we intend to face one such as Farron. All right, that's it for this week. There's one chapter remaining, so that'll be next Friday. Hope you guys are enjoying it. And if you are in Fruithurst, Alabama, or anywhere near that area, I will be at the Fruithurst Winery tomorrow, Saturday, uh, selling books. So if you live in that area, come say hi. Um, you know, buy some books, or if you have some, I'll sign them. Um, so yeah, it'll be a fun time. At the winery from 10 to 6 Central Time. So come check it out. See you guys next week.